What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with the Emirates Cup logo himself, Mike Gallagher, ready to fly Emirates fly on this Tuesday 11-game last stage of group play slate for the Emirates NBA Cup. Mike, as a walking billboard, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm stealing your bit today. I'm in this lovely business class in the Emirates plane. I got my Emirates shirt, Real Madrid jersey. Love Emirates NBA Cup. I'm stealing your bit. So yeah, today I'm all about the Emirates. We need that sponsorship though.
I dig it. There's a lot at stake here for a number of teams. We have, of course, 8 teams will make it past the group stage. We have 3 of those teams identified currently: the Houston Rockets, the Golden State Warriors, and the Atlanta Hawks. 2 more teams will be identified by head-to-head situations in their groups with wins today. And then there's another 3 teams at stake that we'll walk through the scenarios. But Mike, where would you like to start in terms of walking through motivations and scenarios before we get into injuries?
Yeah, let's start with the games like right off the top, as you mentioned. The 2 games that have by far the highest motivation would be the 2 on the screen here. Orlando is playing the Knicks. Winner of that wins the group. They also get a home court game because they'll be 4-0. So they're going to be going for it. Tibbs is in this game. We could see Jamal Mosley out Tibbs on his main guys. And then again, Detroit, they win. They're in the group. They do have some outs as well. Should note, and it's pretty cool, the NBA.com, they kind of shaded the teams who are still in it. And you'll see those 2 teams are 4 of the 5, and the only other one in it is Boston. So the loser of these 2 games, Boston's sitting there at plus 23. They're done. So, the Pistons got a little 5-game cushion, and the Knicks,
5 point.
5 point. Excuse me. So they got a little bit, but the Knicks, if they lose, they're dead. So, the Knicks basically have to win. We could see them really, really play tight here. Definitely think they're going to be going for it. And then going to Group A, the Rockets are in, but they should want to win. If they get a win, they're going to be, home court. I don't think they really care if it's a 1 or 2 seed, but they do got a little bit of cushion. If they do happen to lose and say, the Spurs win pretty big, or one of these, if OKC wins big, 2 of these teams winning big would be somewhat hurt the Rockets to potentially losing that seed. And if the Warriors win, they would be 4-0. They would get the 1 seed as well in the situation. And the Mavs are obviously really motivated. They have that big plus 41 that's going to be help to them huge. Should note too, you see the Blazers. Besides the team I already talked about it. Just to knock these guys out, the Nuggets and Grizzlies, they have a chance, but there's no chance. So besides these 3 teams in Group B, and obviously the Rockets, talked about the Warriors, the only other team that has something to play for that's within reason is the Blazers. If the Blazers get a win and OKC loses and Dallas loses, they're in. So the Blazers could be playing pretty tight here.
Well, the timing of these games, though, could lead to. So, for example, Memphis and Dallas play at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Denver and Golden State play at 10 p.m. Eastern time. From Denver's perspective, they most likely will have nothing to play for. But let's say Memphis goes out there and at tip-off, Memphis is up 20 points on Dallas in the third quarter here. At that point, Denver might be like, oh, well, you've got our full attention. There's a path here. Denver needs Memphis to lose, and they also need – I lost my scenarios page. They need Memphis to lose, and they need 2 other teams to lose as well. Where are my scenarios?
Pull that up.
They need Memphis to lose – or sorry, Dallas to lose, OKC to lose, and Portland to lose. So they need those 3 teams to lose. They need Memphis to beat Dallas by a bunch today. But by that point, by the time that they start, right, OKC will be pretty close to finishing. OKC's probably winning. So that's probably moot. OKC's home against Utah. They're huge favorites. But my point being is some of these teams that have small shots will know for sure one way or another by the time they start. Now, it's still a regular season game. I still think you're going to see Denver and Golden State on TNT. I still think Denver is going to play their normal guys. But in terms of trying to pile it up or anything like that, I think that's where you would want the influence from earlier in the slate to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Let's get into the injury stuff on this slate. Let's start with Milwaukee and Detroit. That is one of the win and you're in ticket scenarios. On the Milwaukee side, Chris Middleton remains out, though going to be available sometime after Thanksgiving, according to Milwaukee. It is after Thanksgiving. There's still no Chris Middleton. Giannis Antetokounmpo is probable with right patella tendinopathy. Marjan Beauchamp, probable left hamstring tendinopathy. And Taurean Prince, probable with a right quad contusion. What are your notes and expectations here on the Bucks?
Yeah, so we saw Giannis. We mentioned it on that Thursday show that he got that P tag for the calf. They listed him out with knee. Should be good. Really no indications. He was actually sick yesterday at practice, so he didn't practice. And I don't think they listed him with that. I think they still have him listed with I don't have it up right now. Just double check that real quick. But he missed practice for a stomach illness. Yeah, he's not listed with that. So that's a little weird that they didn't list him for that since he missed practice for it. So a little bit of a heads up on that. I would expect Giannis to be pretty full. It is hopefully just a stomach thing where maybe he just ate something and he's okay. But we've seen that linger. Kevin Love with I think it was Bass that cut him down and affected him a few years ago there. So yeah, I think he's in. But worth noting that he was ill yesterday. We talked a lot about this, how illnesses could affect players, but expect him in. And then, yeah, we could see a lot of minutes. Damian Lillard's been playing a ton. Brooks been playing a lot. Taurean Prince has been shooting the ball great this year. He'll be locked into a starting lineup. Andre Jackson still starting and still having a pretty good role in the first unit. But yeah, he'll be sharing minutes with AJ Green, Gary Trent, and then DeLon Wright's pretty firmly in there, and obviously Bobby Portis. So we've got a pretty good picture of their 9-man. And again, Doc Rivers said this is a, quote, must-win game for them. They want to win this group. They want to go out there and get a home court game. So if Giannis is healthy, I would expect them possibly to play like 38, 39, 40 with a lot of upside. The Detroit defense is better, but definitely a chance for them to really put up some stats on the main guys with pushed up minutes.
We've seen the secondary pieces in this rotation, the Taurean Prince, Gary Trent, Andre Jackson Jr., AJ Green, DeLon Wright, minutes like really, really wildly variant based on matchup, based on who's playing well. How do you feel about the secondary players in this matchup against Detroit?
Yeah, one, I don't think they're going to play a lot just because I think the other guys are going to play so many minutes. But yeah, I think Andre Jackson should be, he's got some more size and more length. I think that's a little bit more in demand for the matchup against Cade Cunningham. So I think Andre may be a little bit more safer. There was some talk from Doc Rivers saying he needs to find his shots in the flow of the offense and shoot the ball a little bit more, coming off a 1-7 shooting game. But yeah, so I think he's like slightly in the lead, but I don't feel strongly. They put AJ Green on a lot of guys over the last week, even who give up some size. But I think just from a Cade perspective, I think Ajax could have more minutes than we're kind of used to.
That makes sense to me with Prince and Jackson because the defensive focus being kind of the lead here. All right, let's move to Detroit side where their injury report pretty clean here. Just listing the G Leaguers out. Any notes you have on the Pistons as they continue to reintegrate Asar Thompson into the rotation?
Yeah, let's start with that. They are going to stick with this little 3 to 4 minute rotation thing. According to JB Bickerstaff, they're going to kind of, he said they're going to stick with it until further notice. So I don't think anything changes there. Should note, Cade Cunningham missed the last game, very late scratch. Detroit does this a lot, but I gather he was just bothered by it a little bit. We saw him play. He would have been playing 34 minutes in his return on Friday in a big Emirates NBA Cup win. So he was pretty full relative to, missing a good week there. So expecting Cade to be in there pretty full. We went 35.5 minutes on Cade, and he could definitely beat that given that he just hit 34. Again, this game's huge for them. And, that last game wasn't even that big because if they would have lost that, they still could have won the group by winning today. So, yeah, he could easily play like 37 in this spot. So expecting Cade to be quite full. That should bump Malik Beasley back to the bench. But then again, Tim Hardaway's been pretty bad. Maybe they flipped that. I mentioned that last time. It didn't happen. And then, yeah, Tobias has been kind of meh since returning from the hip impingement. Should be in there with, full-ish minutes overall. And then, Jaden Ivey played great for the most part. Was actually didn't play in the fourth quarter at all in this game. So his minutes got really cut down for blowout as they got smoked by the Sixers. And should note, too, both of these coaches really complained about the schedulers putting them in an Emirates NBA Cup game on Friday and then playing them on Saturday. And then today they play again tomorrow. So they both get the front end back-to-back for the last 2 games of the Emirates NBA Cup. So just kind of a heads up for tomorrow. I think they go for it today. And then I think multiple players, Cade, possibly Giannis, possibly Dame, possibly Jalen Duren. Possibly I think like 4 to 5 players in this game could sit out tomorrow. You're on mute, or
I'm muted. Let's go to Philadelphia and Charlotte. On the Philadelphia side of things, they're without Joel Embiid, now without Andre Drummond as well with a right ankle sprain. They've got probable tags on Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, and Caleb Martin, so we may have the return of Kyle Lowry. Without the two centers, though, what do you expect them to do against a smaller Charlotte front court that may be getting bigger today?
Yeah, so their front court got pretty thin here. Obviously, Andre Drummond is going to miss 3 games at least. He was in a boot yesterday. He's not in a boot today. So it sounds like it's going to be more of a day-to-day thing more than a week-to-week thing, but he is going to miss 3 games. Suffered that injury real bad. And we talk about this, bigger men who jump and land on their own ankle and turn it. There's just more force being applied to it. Drummond's, one of the biggest guys in the NBA. So I'm really not surprised he's missing some serious time. So that should almost certainly lock Gerson Yabusele into the first unit. Paul George minutes were, okay. He was trending for close to 30 in his return. Looked fine overall. He didn't shoot the ball great, but Nick Nurse said after the game that he really liked how he played. 5 assists, got 8 boards. He was pretty active out there. I thought he looked okay. So he'll start. Maxi's obviously going to start. Caleb probably starting. We saw that back injury cost him some time last week, was something that was basically bothering him for a week now. So he could be limited, possibly off the bench. They do like Kelly Oubre in the first unit. So I think that they want to have more size. Nurse talked about how they were a little bit small at times and how the rebounding was really hurting them. So I think they're still going to bring Jared McCain off the bench. Nick Nurse said after the game that he has to get used to being the, quote, full-time backup point guard. Now Kyle Lowry's back. What does that mean? I still think that they're going to probably start Maxi, Paul George, Oubre, Caleb, Gerson Yabusele. But yeah, I mean, it could be. I could see KJ Martin starting over Caleb if they want to kind of manage Caleb. But that's kind of where we're at. So I think KJ's kind of done enough to earn minutes. He was great in this game. 27 minutes, started the second half for the Drummond injury as Gerson Yabusele slid over. So yeah, integrating Kyle Lowry should, I would say for sure, take Eric Gordon out. Ricky Council, who was also pretty effective late in this game, got to the line 7 times, is pretty aggressive. His minutes should come way down with Kyle Lowry, but they might split it a little bit. I think Ricky may have done enough. But really the headline is McCain, who didn't shoot at all, only shot 7 times. So his minutes are probably going to be in the upper 20s, maybe hits 30 if he's kind of got it going overall. But that's kind of where we're at. It's kind of tough. When obviously Adem Bana will be in the rotation, but they do view KJ Martin as a bit of a 4-5 combo, and they did talk about playing a little bit smaller here.
Yeah, the challenge here is obviously I'd feel more confident in that opinion on Jared McCain minutes if Drummond was healthy. Without Drummond, I just don't know. And again, Charlotte, you can play smaller. We'll talk about their center position potentially getting reinforcements today. But if they're able to play smaller and they're just hey, let's figure out the center minutes between Yabusele and KJ Martin and Bona, essentially. If they just keep maybe if KJ Martin has some spillover at the 4, there's a lot of minutes open to not only integrate Kyle Lowry, but potentially extend Jared McCain too. So I don't know how they're going to do this. This was the first game that we saw McCain. We've also seen Nurse backtrack on stuff a lot in terms of his comments. So I'm interested to see. I think when things are working well functionally from an offensive perspective, it makes all the sense in the world to have Jared McCain off the bench and be kind of microwave scorer off the bench, upper 20s minutes. I wonder what happens on nights that they're struggling to score a little bit more with Paul George and with Tyrese Maxey if they're not having it. Will we see McCain get back into the mid 30s minutes? I just think that Nurse can flip a switch pretty quickly. So we'll see on that front. Charlotte side, LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges remain out, as does Trey Mann, and then Grant Williams is obviously lost for the season. We got Nick Richards back last game. Mark Williams is now listed questionable with a left foot tendon strain. Mark Williams was kind of on a similar path to Nick Richards in terms of returning to the G League, practicing with the G League team. But we know Mark Williams is a slow healer just generally. So we were expecting there to be more time between the two. Nick Richards in his return came off the bench. They continued to start Diabate, but he played kind of starters-ish minutes, ended up fouling out in this one. What are your expectations for Mark Williams' potential return and how that impacts things in the Charlotte rotation tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Williams has been out for 2 months with this foot injury. He was in a boot for a while. And then, as you mentioned, he's been practicing with the G League for a week here. Talked about that a little bit last week, too. So, yeah, Mark didn't sound like too thrilled. He had a little presser with the media, and he was like, yeah, I've been out for a long time. Didn't sound too enthused, so I don't think it's a lock he plays. But if he does play, I feel pretty strongly. A, he'll be limited, and B, I would think he would come off the bench given how he's hurt all the time. And again, this is a thing he's been in the boot for, 2-month injury. That's something you don't play around with for a guy who's been hurt way, way too often there. So, yeah, that'll cover 2 of the minutes. 2 of the center guys getting minutes. I think they might still play Diabate, depending on how strict that limit is. But we landed at 15 minutes on Mark Williams. It might be lighter than that. I could see them doing like what they did with Nemhard. We'll talk about that, and just playing like the first half or like one rotation. We'll see. So, yeah, other than that, not too much to say. Lamelos and Trey Mann are going to miss some time, so that'll put Vasilicevic locked in the first unit. It's been basically KJ Simpson behind him. They had some, KJ had a couple fouls early that kind of went some small, non-point guard minutes in the first half. That explains the Seth Curry minutes. He kind of popped in there. So Seth Curry's like kind of out of this rotation right now overall. But yeah, pretty stable. Salon kind of really cooled off. We had an under on him. Shout out to you for pointing it out. Had his worst game. He was playing upper 30 some games and just didn't have it and lost minutes late. But he should be kind of back on track with this team. Still pretty thin in overall perimeter players.
Yeah, I would just say for somebody like Salon, he's going to have every opportunity if he's playing decently. If he's playing terribly, though, with the increased depth of getting Nick Richards back, maybe getting Mark Williams back, that creates paths where Diabate can play the 4, and they could use Diabate out there just for energy. And so I think like Salon's minutes could be more volatile just going forward with the return of Richards and Williams, even though he doesn't really play the 5. I just think there's more paths to potentially being cut down here. Agree with you that Taj Gibson is most likely to be moot going forward. Washington and Cleveland, we thought this game, when we did our NBA Emirates Cup breakdown, we thought this game was going to have all sorts of goodies in terms of the potential point chasing, but Cleveland couldn't get the job done against Atlanta. And as a result, this game has nothing from a meaning perspective for the NBA Emirates Cup. On the Washington side, they're without Kyle Kuzma tonight with a left rib sprain, and still without Sadiq Bey and Tristan Vukovic. What are your expectations on how Washington lines up in the absence of Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah, so Jonas Valanciunas got the start, and I had mentioned on Saturday we were doing our minutes. This is a chance to do that because they wanted to have some size against Giannis. They're playing a big team in Cleveland. They could definitely do it again. I think probably 85% of the teams they would start Keyshawn George, but I think they're going to go Valanciunas here with the exercise there. I could be wrong. They could definitely go back to George. So it'll be one of those 2 guys starting. Obviously, the other one will still be in the rotation. The rest of the starters are generally locked in here. It is a 16-point spread. We already took a Malcolm Brogdon under, kind of rooting for some blowout. Should note, Brogdon was freaking awesome in this game. Goes for 29, 11 boards, and played 30 minutes. That was a lot for him as they really let him go there. But yeah, so we know Bilal Coulibaly will play a ton. Jordan Poole will play as much as long as they could stay in this game. And then I mentioned George. We'll still see Bub. Bub's minutes have really been cut down since Malcolm Brogdon has come into the mix. And then Corey Kispert, a little hit and miss, kind of hot and cold sometimes. But this is pretty tight. I think that generally the Emirates NBA Cup games, Keith has kept it pretty tight. And then obviously when it goes to blowout, he'll go away. But there could be pretty strong minutes if they could somehow keep this 16-point spread into single digits into the fourth. I think there could be some pretty high minutes overall.
Yeah, and they are not on the front end of a back-to-back. Just quickly going through the teams that are: Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Orlando, Indiana, Detroit, and the Clippers are all on the front end of back-to-backs tonight. So Washington, you might see a later plug pull on them, even if the game's non-competitive. On the Cleveland side of things, Ty Jerome listed questionable with illness. They're still without Max Strus, Luke Travers, JT Thor, Imani Bates, and then they've got a questionable tag on Dean Wade. So a couple key rotation pieces here with questionable tags. What's your read on Ty Jerome and Dean Wade's availability tonight?
Yeah, Dean Wade went through shoot around. Looks like he's going to be back. I would expect him to be limited. He's been dealing with this ankle thing for a little bit. So I would expect Okoro to start. Played pretty well in this game against the Celtics. I don't think he's really done anything to lose his job. So I think they still stick with Okoro. Bringing in Dean Wade, that'll take away some minutes from George Niang. A little bit of upside taken away from Karis LeVert. And then also, Ty Jerome being ill could definitely cut him down a little bit there. That could have affected him over the weekend as well. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Again, huge spread here. Not a back-to-back, but I could definitely see them. We've seen them kind of design lighter minutes even in the first half before it gets carried away. So I could see one of those situations where they're trending to play, 33. That's Donovan Mitchell, Garland, etc. So we saw that a lot earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, we were like, hey, play these guys 34 minutes one time. So I think it could be one of those situations given the spread here and coming off a really big win.
Could be a good spot if you see Ty Jerome unavailable. Could be a good spot for Karis LeVert tonight. The ball will go in his hands a lot more. Washington, obviously, a team that's vulnerable to drivers, which is when Karis LeVert is kind of doing his best work. So if you see that Ty Jerome illness tag turn into an out tag, I would be more optimistic on Karis LeVert tonight from props, DFS, season long, whatever you're looking for. I know I own Karis LeVert in an industry roto league, and he's like always on my bench unless somebody key is out, and that might be the case tonight if Ty Jerome sits.
Yeah, and one last note, Jalen Tyson and Craig Porter Jr., they were with the G League team today earlier, but they're expected to be called up for this game at home, just to add that for when we do get, if Ty Jerome's out, we'll give those guys some minutes.
All right, on to Indiana and Toronto. On the Indiana side, Andrew Nembhard questionable. Tristan Newton questionable. They're still without Aaron Nesmith, Ben Shepherd, and of course the centers who are lost for the year. What are your expectations on Andrew Nembhard, who returned last game on minutes limitations, played great in his 15 minutes and then didn't show up for the second half? What are your expectations on Nembhard's availability today? And I know they are on the front end of a back-to-back, so imagine that he's probably not playing both ends of the back-to-back.
Yeah, I think they'll play him today and probably sit him tomorrow. As you noted, they played him 15 minutes in the first half, and I think we landed at 23 minutes on him, and we were like, "Oh no, he's gonna kill us on the minutes on the high end," and he doesn't play in the second half. Obviously, after the game, Rick Carlisle said this was by design. That was how they wanted to play it. And then also, as you noted there, I mean, look at the scores. They dropped 45 points in the first quarter, and then 23, 23, and 30, and then got run off the court by the Grizzlies. Grizzlies just blow out so many teams now. So yeah, expect Nembhard to start. Rick Carlisle said they were expecting his minutes to come up, and he said they could put him in the second half, so it's not even like a lock that they do that. I would still expect him to do that, so I think he's going to be in the kind of mid-20s here overall, so that'll take away a little bit of minutes from TJ McConnell. Obviously, Quentin Jackson, who I don't think he even played in the first half, and then came out.
He subbed in late in the second quarter.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then, started the second half, too. So Quentin Jackson would be mostly going away for the most part. And then Jarris Walker's minutes would come down. I still think Ben Mathurin plays a bunch. Halliburton's been playing a pretty good bit. And, they just don't have any center depth. They really, really need it. So that's kind of put some more pressure on Miles Turner. Obi Toppin hasn't been playing great. We've seen him, play mid-teens a couple times. He played okay in this game. But, his ceiling would come down a little bit as Nembhard's minutes come up, and they basically just play a little bit smaller 3 through 4.
Yeah, we took a TJ McConnell under in this game. One of the reasons we thought that the rotation would get spread out a little bit more with Nembhard back, and they'd Quentin Jackson had earned a role to play a 9-man rotation, and they were 8 for the first quarter and a half, and then Jackson subbed in late in the second quarter, and then Jackson obviously started the third. But they were essentially playing like an 8.5-ish man rotation. I don't know that they'll do that on the front end of a back-to-back. So we might see things more spread out, but obviously Carlisle's frustrated. They're not really playing very well, especially on the road, 2-9 on the road now. And so I don't know. Sometimes these coaches, when they get frustrated, they start playing playoff rotations for a few games, and you kind of get stuck with trying to deal with the ramifications of figuring out, is this going to continue or not? They don't really have reinforcements coming anytime soon. I mean, Nesmith and Nembhard, Nesmith and Shepherd look like they're out for a good bit. So they've got to bring Nembhard along relatively slowly. If they're not going to play Nembhard tomorrow, you'd think that'd be even more reason for Quentin Jackson to play a fuller stint today. But I don't know. This is kind of tricky for us from a projection standpoint if they're really going to play as tight as they have the last few games, because it's been a big difference from where they have been historically in terms of how tight Carlisle's been playing things of late.
Yep.
Toronto side of things, Bruce Brown still out with that return to competition reconditioning. Kelly Olynyk out with the back lumbar strain. Emmanuel Quickly still out with the partial UCL tear. And then Grady Dick gets upgraded to a questionable tag with that left calf contusion. What's your read on Grady Dick tonight? Dick in or Dick out?
Yeah, don't know about the Dick situation. He did go through full practice yesterday, but it was just like a light shooting practice. It was almost like a glorified walkthrough. So not too much to glean off that. They did list it. So they listed it from a calf strain to a calf contusion, which that reminded me of that Daignault quote, because I think he missed 3 games, and that's when they have to make you change your designation. So I don't really know if it's something I'm keeping an eye on. So that said, the most important quote from Darko was saying that they're hopeful he returns in this next 5-game stretch. They have 5 more home games here on one of the big homestands of the season. So seems like he's probably on the doubtful side of this, but never know. He's a young Dick. He can maybe get up for this one and give it a go. So we'll see. But yeah, other than that, if he did play, he'd probably start. If he only missed a week, he might be normal-ish. Usually guys coming off injuries, if it's 2 weeks, you're going to see like multiple, games you got to ramp up. But if you only missed a week for this, I think it could be like normal-ish, meaning like maybe he touches 30 in this spot here. If he did play and was full-ish, probably bumps Jacoby Walter back to the bench to cut his roll down. And then, yeah, you'd feel the squeeze on Davion. Jamal Shed would go away. Jamison Battle will feel a little bit of a squeeze. Who's been great. Jamison Battle's been, pretty effective overall. But yeah, not a great read on Dick, but I think he's slightly more likely out than in.
All right, let's go to Orlando and New York, another game that decides winning or in to the Emirates NBA Cup. Orlando still without Paolo Banchero and Gary Harris here. Otherwise healthy, no questionable tags. What are your notes on the Magic?
Yeah, Magic just keep on winning. Their defense has been insane. They're taking away the rim with the best of them. Just mostly blowouts here. The Nets kind of hung around in this game, but Wendell Carter Jr. got pretty much back to full in the last game, back to 28. So expecting that starting lineup to stick. They've gone this way regardless. I mean, they did it against the Bulls when they were really small and fast. They want to play their way. They want to beat you on the boards and take away the paint. So expect that to stick. Jalen Suggs returning from that hamstring. He just can't get it going. Fouled out in this game. Can he play minutes here? I mean, we were trying to push his minutes up, but it's kind of hard because, he is not 100% and he's really dealt with a lot of foul trouble. So there's a world where Jalen Suggs plays a lot. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope starting to play a lot better. And he said during one of the in-game interviews that his son, whose name is Knowledge, by the way, him being born has like kind of opened him up and been able to, hit shots again because he was really struggling earlier in the year. So yeah, starting 5 should be that. I'd be pretty surprised if they changed Wendell out. And then the core bench guys, Anthony Black, Mo Wagner, Tristan Da Silva, Jonathan Isaac, who ran into some fouls and stuff, kind of played pilot. That's kind of their core 9. And then we'll see if they bring in, Cole Anthony or Jett Howard. But I think that's going to be, I think they'll just run that 9. Could see a lot of minutes out of Franz. We've seen Franz play. He touched 40 before. He plays, 38 all the time in close games. Big game for the Emirates NBA Cup. Could see a lot of Franz Wagner in this game.
Still no accreditation from KCP about us taking an over on him and him not scoring at all, improving his shooting after that because he's been on a tear since then. New York side of things, still no Precious Achiuwa, no Mitchell Robinson. Otherwise, clean injury report. What are your notes here on the Knicks, who, as you alluded to before, because both teams have plenty of incentive here, but because the Knicks point differential considerations compared to the rest of the field, they pretty much have to win and get in. Orlando will likely, even if they lost, would likely advance. Obviously, they have the motivation of winning to get a home game. But what's your read on the Knicks' availability tonight?
Yeah, they're going to go for it, like you mentioned. Should be, and Draymond just got listed out. We'll talk about that in a second. This should be pretty much all systems go. I could see Brunson playing like 38, 39, 40. Cat could play upper 30s. Josh Hart touches 40 here. They're probably going to go just like 7, or I guess they would go 8. Campaign's been pretty good, should note. So they're going to run that 8-man with the bench being Jericho Sims, who's played pretty well for them too. And then Deuce McBride, Campaign. The question is, I should mention OG Anunoby could also play a lot. Going to probably guard a lot of Franz here. But the question is, we're starting to see Mikal Bridges get a little bit of a squeeze from here from Deuce McBride. We've seen him lose like half rotations here and there. So if Mikal's playing great and we talk about the Pelicans being bad. The Pelicans get blown out like every night. They lost by double digits again last night. And, is there anything worse than having Mikal Bridges score 30 on them? That's pretty much just like take your ball and go home here for the Pelicans. So that's the 8-man, and I expect the rotations to be really, really tight, and we're probably going to see like 3 or 4 40 minutes on this box score when it's all done tonight.
Yeah, on the Mikal Bridges side, it was good to see him have a nice shooting game, a nice scoring game. Hopefully that can continue. He's a big key for the Knicks having championship level aspirations. I know Jared Dubin wrote about this in his Substack last night in basketball, maybe a week ago or so. But Bridges has this very abnormal rotation that extends into the second quarter. He plays the full first quarter and then plays the second quarter. He plays the full third quarter, then extends into the fourth quarter. If they're going to do anything, just cut off those minutes at the start. And Jared had noted that essentially like Bridges is shooting like massively worse to start the fourth quarter and to start the second quarter than he is in all other situations. And it's probably because nobody has these types of rotations that play 14, 15, 16 minutes straight. So if there's anywhere to squeeze the minutes on Bridges, I'm hopeful that they just take it from that, and then he can be more efficient offensively overall, because he won't be taking those very inefficient, tired shots in the second and fourth quarters. Okay, let's go to Utah and Oklahoma City. Utah side, no Jordan Clarkson, no Filipowski, no Taylor Hendricks, no Oscar Tshiebwe, no Cody Williams, questionable tag on Micah Potter with the illness, and an available tag for Colin Sexton. He continues to get listed as available. What are your notes here on the Jazz?
Late ad for Micah Potter, who's been in the rotation. We saw that game out of nowhere where they just sat everyone, and he started that game, and he's earned minutes. He's played pretty well, but late Q tag, always a bad situation there, so he could be out here. That would condense things a little bit, give more minutes to Drew Eubanks, Bryce Sensabaugh, Johnny Uzang as well. But other than that, this rotation should be pretty stable. They are massive, massive dogs in this spot, so we took a little bit off for blowout. OKC definitely could try to run it up a little bit, but I think if they get the win, they're in a pretty good spot. We'll talk about that in a second. But should note Walker Kessler has been really good. He's played outstanding. A lot of talk from Will Hardy saying how it was interesting. Will Hardy's such an interesting cat. So he was talking about how shooters have to be like shot ready in a different way to have their feet set basically before the ball comes. And he talked about that from a big man's perspective, to basically have your hands ready and be ready to go up quicker since you're in traffic. And that was really something that Walker Kessler has improved on to improve his shots around the basket and not get contested and get some cleaner looks. So real interesting stuff there. But other than that, everything's pretty much the same. It's just we've got big blowout concerns in OKC.
OKC side of things, no Alex Caruso, no Yishman Jang, no Chet Holmgren, no Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, the big Jalen Williams who's been out for the whole season, no Topic, no Alex Dukas. You mentioned that you think a win and they're in pretty good shape. The challenge to that is they won't know. The San Antonio Phoenix game starts after them, so they'll have no information. The only way for them to potentially try to control their own destiny, right, is to pile on the point differential. Because if they win, they get to 3-1, but San Antonio has the tiebreaker over them. So San Antonio wins in Phoenix, and San Antonio would control their destiny there. The tiebreaker amount that they need to potentially pile up is quite large, because Dallas and Memphis are playing at a similar time as well. Dallas and Memphis at 8:30 Eastern time, Oklahoma City, Utah at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So they will have some information there, but Dallas currently 23 points ahead in point differential. So if Dallas is winning, which is the only scenario that the point differential matters between Dallas and Oklahoma City, because they each have one loss there. If Dallas is winning, then OKC's got to win by at least 25, 27, 30, 35 points. And so there is a lot of incentive here to potentially pile it up. Unfortunately for OKC's position, no matter what they do, Dallas will have information going into the fourth quarter about what OKC has done. So what are your thoughts? Dagnall has really downplayed running it up, has really downplayed the meaningfulness of the Emirates NBA Cup. What are your thoughts in terms of how he approaches things tonight? Because I think it's pretty important on this slate with OKC in such a favorable matchup, but obvious concerns over playing time.
Yeah, a little bit of concern on the blowout. I don't think they go full bore and really say they're up, 25 with 7 minutes left. I think that they may pull back at 5 minutes. I don't think they go for it all the way to the end and play SGA, 38 minutes, something like that. So we got some blowout on there, not all the way, because I think despite their, code. I wouldn't call it code, but I don't know. I'm not really buying it, man. I think this means a lot. Players get a $500,000 if you win it too. So I mean that means something to them, and I think they're competitors. They want to win. So I'm not entirely buying it, but I do think that they don't go all out and like, okay, we're up 35 and we still have SGA in there with 3 minutes left. I don't think they're going to do anything like that.
The problem is that they need to like that.
Yeah.
The challenge is like winning by 25 does you no good, really. Yep. You've got to win by 35 to 40 for it to put any sort of pressure on Dallas to have to put up a number essentially. So that's I think it's one of those situations where it's hard to middle. I think they're either going to be all in or not. I'm interested to see how they play it out because, like I said, Dagnall has been downplaying it. The thing that they have in their favor, though, in terms of if they want to middle it, is they have the out that if Phoenix takes care of business at home against San Antonio, then they're in if they win. Yep. So they have an out there, but I think it's one of the most unique and interesting situations from a coaching perspective to watch this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to Memphis and Dallas. On the Memphis side, no Zach Edey, no Gigi Jackson, no Vince Williams Jr. Memphis continues running these larger rotations, continues piling up wins. What are your notes on the Grizzlies tonight?
Yeah, not too much to add. Sorry, Marshawn Beauchamp, questionable. Yeah, not too much. They just play deep. I don't really have anything to say. They're playing great. 14-7. Everything's been great. John Morant's been better defensively, and then they're locked into this Marcus Smart bench thing. There's commentary from Taylor Jenkins. They're going to stick with that. Smart seems to like it. So, yeah, pretty stable. They'll continue to start Jalen Wells, bring Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia, Santi Aldama, and then Luke Kennard is kind of their core guys. And then we're starting to see Jay Huff start to go away because they've got all these great wings that they want to play. So, yeah, that's kind of their core nine. Scottie Pippen also really got cut down, not far from a 30-point game at United Center. And he's really losing minutes here is Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's been great, so it makes sense. But yeah, those core guys are trending up. I feel pretty good that they're kind of in the lead as the gap's widening from those guys I mentioned, and then Jay Huff and Scotty are kind of gonna have a tough time getting upper teens again.
Dallas side of things, they're without Najee Marshall and Dante Exum. Questionable tags on Derek Lively and Klay Thompson. What do you read on those Q tags tonight? Obviously, Dallas in a position that they cannot win their group because they've lost to Golden State. So all they care about is winning in point differential. They have a good enough lead on the point differential that they should be like if they win by like 10 or something like that, they should be in pretty good shape. But they'll have information at their disposal, like I said, because that OKC game is going to end as they're going into the fourth quarter or so. And OKC to put pressure on them is going to have to win by 30, something like that. But generally, Dallas should be winning you're in for the most part. So and even if I should note, even if Dallas were to win and OKC were to surpass them in point differential, Dallas would still have the scenario where they could get in if Phoenix won, but Phoenix did not surpass them in point differential. So Phoenix would need to be winning by more than 23, 25. So Dallas has a lot of different routes that they're fairly safe here as long as they win. What are your expectations for Klay Thompson and Derek Lively's availability tonight?
Yeah, Klay's a little bit banged up. We saw him missed a couple games for the foot injury. He's been managed pretty good. So he's. It sounds like he's got a chance to be back. He had really no chance to play over the weekend, according to Mark Stein. So trending in the right direction. And we saw Derek Lively get hurt a couple games ago. Didn't play in the last one. It didn't look terrible. He was playing through it at first. So I think Derek Lively's got a pretty good chance to return and start. But Klay clearly dealing with this thing. And then, they'll probably start him, but they might not. I think that there's a chance that given away the nature of the injury, they bring him off the bench because Quentin Grimes has been really good. So there's a chance that Klay comes off the bench for now. Just because Grimes has been so effective there. But then, obviously, you're going to get – we saw Luka return. Luka looked great, and really not surprising. Drops 36 in his return after, about a week and a half off. And then Kyrie was just managed. They listed him with a shoulder injury the last game. Mark Stein said that even before this game, they were thinking about sitting Kyrie. So, expect Kyrie to be back in full. And as you mentioned, they're gunning for it. I would expect them to play pretty tight. And then, upper 30s for the two guards. PJ, I think Grimes can play a pretty good bit off the bench, especially if Klay can't go. And then Spencer Dinwiddie's been also really good just to shut him out.
All right, let's go to San Antonio and Phoenix. As we just talked through sort of the group impacts here, San Antonio, when in you're in for San Antonio at this point. So their injury report: the return of Jeremy Sohan tonight. He's probable. They're without Trey Jones. And what does the reintegration of Jeremy Sohan look like for San Antonio tonight? Because in his absence, Stephen Castle's played largely pretty well.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I mean, not only has Stephen Castle played well, they have Western Conference Player of the Week and Harrison Barnes in there as well. You know, he didn't win it last week. That was Alfred Şengün, but he won it 2 weeks ago. So what do you do here? I mean, has Castle done enough to keep starting? I don't know. So I think, I mean, should note, Sohan was ridiculously good. He was awesome for the first, 10 games he was in there. So I think he's going to start. And the question is, does Harrison Barnes start? I kind of think they go to Castle off the bench and just kind of run him there. It's not like Castle's been like that great. So I think
especially without Trey Jones. Jones.
Exactly.
It just makes sense to have him be the backup point guard.
Yep. So I would lean Castle back to the bench. We saw Devin Vassell play pretty well, pretty locked into those mid-20s minutes. I don't think he's going to touch 30 for a bit, unfortunately, coming off the toe surgery and the knee thing that bothered him last week that cost him some time. Same knee that he hurt and had surgery on 2 years ago. So Vassell looks to be locked in that bench role for now. Maybe that's going to take some time. Eventually should unseat Julian Champagnie, but looks like it's going to be a couple more games there. So yeah, just to recap again, so expecting Chris Paul, Champagnie, Harrison Barnes, Sohan, and Wemby. I think Wemby could play a lot. We saw him play 37, triple-double, huge game for Wemby. He could play a ton here with, the biggest game of his NBA career for sure, right? I mean, like you said, when you're in the NBA Cup. So could see upper 30s on him. And then bench, mentioned Vassell, mentioned Keldon, mentioned Castle. And then it's going to be a bit of a Bassey-Collins split for their last man. And so, yeah, could get pretty tight for these guys. And we'll see how much Chris Paul plays, right? Played 34 the last game. Maybe he plays, 33, 34, 35 again.
All right, let's go to Phoenix. On the Phoenix side, Bradley Beal listed available here. Yusuf Nurkic out with a right thigh contusion. What are your expectations for how Phoenix lines up tonight?
Yeah, the Nurk is going to miss at least a week, which is funny because he was, quote, probable to play in the last game, and he did not play and then got ruled out for a week. So Mike Budenholzer doing his best Doc Rivers impersonation there. So, yeah, Bradley Beal missed the last game. Really just management. Should be back. Expect his minutes to be capped a little bit. But Kevin Durant already back to full. Lost a minute for blowout, and he's still already getting 36 minutes. So he's going to play a ton. I think we landed at 36.5 on him. Booker could play 40 here. They're going to try to win this game pretty good. And then we should see Bradley Beal back in the starting lineup to replace Grayson Allen. Obviously, Tyus will start. And then the next question is, Oso was fantastic in this game, but do you want to have him out there for Wemby? I don't know. He struggled against Anthony Davis and like really high-end centers guarding, so they might still start Plumlee, but there's a world where Oso Ighodaro gets the lion's share of these center minutes. They could also play Royce O'Neal and do kind of the Houston Rockets strategy and a lot of other teams where they kind of take their best wing defender and put him on Wemby. I could see that to up Royce O'Neal's minutes. So we've got plenty of small ball in this situation here. But yeah, again, really, really big game. Yeah, I was hiking this morning and a lot of people had sun stuff on. And I was like, hey, big game. And they're like, what? I was like, oh, you don't have Emirates NBA Cup fever like I do, huh? But yeah, other than that, so yeah, should be pretty elevated minutes, but expecting Beal to be back with a little bit of a cap on him.
All right, let's go to Golden State and Denver. On the Golden State side of things, Draymond Green was originally listed questionable, has been moved to out. Steph Curry probable, and of course without D'Anthony Melton for the rest of the season. What are your expectations on who starts in the absence of Draymond Green?
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on here. So first of all, Steve Kerr called Draymond doubtful. We had him out in projections all day, and he just got ruled out 15 minutes ago, as we noted. So we weren't expecting him to play. So I would expect Jonathan Kuminga to start for him. Kuminga's been all over the place. He was pretty poor in this game and then kind of got it going late when the game was basically decided. So expect Kuminga to start. And then the other one, which is a bit of a take by me, I feel pretty strongly that Kevon Looney is getting the start. We've seen him play, the 2 games when they didn't have Draymond last year. When he was struggling, Looney didn't play well. He's playing great this year. Came into shape, all that good stuff. He played 22 minutes in those 2 games without Dre. I think there's a world where Kevon Looney plays like upper 20s minutes for the Jokic matchup there. So I think the starting lineup is going to be Steph Curry, Pods. I'll talk about that in a second. Wiggins, Kuminga, and Kevon Looney. Pods, after the game, Steve Kerr said they want to integrate him now in this starting spot too. And then the big story here was 13-man rotation in the first half, just out of this world. Kerr was like, "Oh, did I play 14? I don't even know. Oh, wait, it was 13." Like he would have played. Like Guy Santos wasn't with the team. If he was with the team, he probably would have played. Enough with this. Steph Curry after the game basically said he doesn't like it. The other players are saying they don't really like it, and Kerr almost said that like they've got to stop with this. So I think there's a world where we're over this 13-man crap, and we could kind of see Pat Spencer, Lindy Waters, Slow-Mo, and those guys get tricked down. I should mention Kyle Anderson didn't play in the second half of this game. So I think this game, despite how it doesn't mean too much for them, I think they do want to kind of get it and to secure the home court game. They're not that safe. If they go 3-1, they don't have a big point diff.
Yeah, they're not getting.
They would win the group.
But yeah, they're not getting a home court gain if they go 3-1.
Yep, exactly. So
it's impossible for them to, because the winner of Group B would have a better. I mean, Houston would have to get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much it, I think. But yeah, headlines here: Minga should start. I feel pretty strongly Looney should start, and we might actually, fingers crossed, that we get this rotation cut down a little bit. Enough with this already.
Yeah, I'm not sure on Minga starting. I think Kyle Anderson replaces a lot of the stuff Draymond Green does, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Anderson slide in that starting lineup. And then if you move Looney into the starting lineup, which I think is fairly likely as well, then you'd have Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis in a second unit with Buddy Hield. That's enough offense in the second unit. The first unit, Steph and Wiggins, is that enough offense? That's the question mark there. That I think is the decision between Kyle Anderson and Kuminga. I think if it was a different matchup that they weren't elevating likely elevating Looney, I'd feel much stronger that it would be Kyle Anderson in the starting lineup. But because I think the matchup with might elevate Looney, I think they might go to Kuminga and like have Kuminga Looney as a combination, Kyle Anderson, Trace Jackson Davis Jr. as a combination. But just like stylistically, Draymond and Kyle Anderson do a lot of the same things in terms of working with Steph to pivot the offense around. Without Draymond out there, the offense has to turn into a lot of pick and roll stuff. The good news is Looney can also do a lot of the stuff Dre can do as well in terms of dribble handoff, being kind of an axis and a lever. He just doesn't have as much range to stretch the court out as much as Kyle Anderson does. Okay. Denver side of things, Aaron Gordon probable, Peyton Watson probable. We saw Aaron Gordon return over the weekend and return off the bench. What are your notes on Aaron Gordon and if we see him in the starting lineup tonight?
Yeah, I think he starts. Obviously, we're coming off that calf injury, was clearly managed, obviously coming off the bench. So I'd expect him to get back in the first unit. I think we landed at 26.5 minutes for him. Could definitely blow past that as we'll try to gather more information leading up to the game. So, yeah, he'll be starting, in my opinion, over Peyton Watson. Worth noting he did play the small ball center spot and the very few Nikola Jokic minutes that were out there, the non-ones, I should say. So, yeah, Joker's playing so much here. But, yeah, pretty tight rotation. They cut out the centers. Could see it running pretty tight again. I think that they're going to try to, given how the Warriors could be trying to push this one up, I think that the Nuggets guys could kind of come along for the ride overall. But yeah, expect him back and not full yet. Like I said, 26.5. But there's a chance he plays 30.
Yeah, the big note for me was on his return. It was just like, okay, here's a clear 8-man rotation now. We don't need to mess around with Dario Saric. We don't need to mess around with DeAndre Jordan anymore. Aaron Gordon can be the backup center. We can go back to the lineups that kind of were successful for us in the past. I don't know how long they can keep that up, right? Like it's hard to play an 8-man rotation kind of throughout the course of the NBA season. But I do think that in the short term, in meaningful games, which this is one, I think you will probably see that. So I think we'll be closer to an 8-man rotation than a 9-man rotation tonight would be my guess for Denver. Okay, Houston and Sacramento. Houston, Cam Whitmore remains out on G League assignment. No other injury notes here. What are your notes on the Rockets?
Yeah, coming off a ridiculously good win over the weekend. Don't have too much to say other than they're awesome, man. I mean, this team's just absolutely crushing. 15-6 on the year. Jabari's alive, played 40 minutes over the weekend. And we were projecting him for, I think, like 27 minutes at one point, about 2 weeks ago, and he's played great. Jalen Green, played 34 minutes with no offense, was pretty surprising as well. So, starting lineup will stay the same no matter how hot Amen Thompson gets or how hot Tari Eason gets. Udoka loves those guys off the bench, so they'll stick in that same starting lineup. And then it's almost like a 7-man. They've got those starters and the 2 big bench pieces. They don't play Steven Adams much. They don't play Reed Shepherd that much anymore. Cam Whitmer's already out of there, so pretty tight spot. I think that they're gonna go for it, but not like full bore. We saw them playing like 40-minute Van Vliet, like almost 40-minute Şengün there. So I think they're gonna play their guys like upper 30s and not, or I should say mid 30s. In the spot that they want to get a win. I think it's important for them to try to go 4-0 in the group.
Yep. Sacramento side, they're without Trey Lyles, Mason Jones. Kevin Huerter is listed questionable here with the right ankle sprain. What are your expectations for the Kings and what has been kind of a fluid bench rotation of late?
Yeah, kind of messy situation here. The headline over the weekend was that Malik Monk will remain in the starting lineup to take him off the 6th man of the year ballot, it would appear. So they are just going, screw it. We're going to outscore you guys and deal with the consequences. So their starting lineup for the foreseeable future will be De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis. They are going to get, I think Kevin Huerter back, went through shoot around while we were talking here, I noticed. So he should be back, but how much is he going to play? He was barely playing. Yeah, with Malik Monk out, he was still barely playing. So he'll be in the rotation, I think. Keon Ellis in the rotation. I think Jay Crowder, and then Isaac Jones has played really well for them. A quote from Mike Brown saying, quote, "We got a player." And Isaac Jones, he's been very good. He's, they're trying to get him to shoot more threes and all that good stuff. So I think Jones is in the rotation. So that starting 5, Huerter, Jay Crowder, Isaac Jones, and Keon Ellis. That's kind of their 9-man. But as we know, look at the starters, 37, 37, 38, 37, 37. So, not much room for the bench guys.
Yep. All right, let's go to Portland and the Clippers. Last game to cover here. On the Portland side, Scoot Henderson questionable with left quad contusion. They're without Robert Williams in concussion protocol, Donovan Clingan with left knee sprain, Matisse Thybulle, and some of the G Leaguers. What are your expectations on Scoot's availability tonight?
I'm not expecting Scoot to play. We have him in projections. Chauncey Billups at practice said that he is, quote, probably out today. He had another MRI on his quad, and the MRI showed a contusion, which is usually a bad sign. So expecting him to miss this game. And then, other than that, we're seeing Chris Murray came back from his chest thing. Big game. Just to go to that really quick, like we said, they get a win here and some things break right. Obviously, the cleanest way would be they win, Dallas loses, OKC loses, but they could win. And then, they basically need Dallas to really lose here and then have a pretty big win. They are -5 in the point differential. So they got to win, and they got to, if OKC wins, they got to really outscore OKC by a pretty good bit, which is, not an easy task for a Blazers team that's just not exactly loaded on offense. But expect pretty tight minutes here. Again, expecting Scoot to sit.
Yeah, I think they'll try to run, but I just don't think they're capable of really doing that, especially against the Clippers defense. But I think you'll see very tight minutes from Portland tonight. Clippers side, no Kevin Porter Jr. with the left ankle sprain, no Kawhi Leonard still with a right knee injury recovery, no Kobe Brown, Cam Christie, Trenton Flowers, or PJ Tucker. Pretty much status quo since what we saw last game with Kevin Porter Jr. out. What are your notes here on the Clippers?
Yeah, Norm Powell returned from his hamstring injury, got a lot of Q tags. He had like 4 Q tags in a row, and as expected, he was capped, but he was freaking great. Scored 28 points. Got to have Norm back for the best ball shares there. So he'll start. And the other note here is, they went 10. Jordan Miller's in there. They want to keep playing Jordan Miller. They said he's kind of like earned a rotation. And then also Amir Coffey got a little bit banged up and lost some minutes. Finally, Terrence Mann gets minutes here. Wasn't because of Coffey's injury. He just was playing well, according to Ty Lue. So I think this is going to be a bit of a 10-man. So that takes a little bit of a minute ceiling away from Derek Jones, Chris Dunn, Mann, Coffey, and then Miller's not going to play enough to matter. That's shout out to Jordan Miller for looks like he's earned a rotation spot.
Well, the real test will come when Kevin Porter Jr. and Norm Powell are both available. We haven't gotten there yet, so that's the real test on whether he's earned a rotation spot. But it's certainly good to break into a 10-man when one of those guys is out. That's a start for sure. And the Clippers, from an Emirates Cup perspective, they have nothing to play for. Just so we're clear, there's no extra motivation for the Clippers tonight.
Yep.
All right, that will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis show, brought to you by Emirates NBA Cup. Get your action tonight on the Emirates NBA Cup. As group play rounds up, our podcast this week will touch on our expectations once we have the brackets. So look for that later in the week as well. If you're interested in continuing to support that free content, the best way to do so is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can hit the bell and get notifications whenever we go live. If you're interested in the paid content, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA for more details on our premium product offerings on both the player props and the DFS side of things. Very proud of the work that we're doing over there. And as always, if you'd like to support us even more on the free side, the best way to do it, other than subscribing to this channel, is to smash that like button. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. That allows us to feed our families and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your season-long lineups, your DFS lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you next time.